Hey, you are now listening to the Social English Podcast. This is a formal English versus social English episode.
皆さんこんにちは。毎日少しずつ社交に使える英語の上達を目指すソーシャルイングリッシュポッドキャストへようこそ。今日はぜひもっと自信を持って英会話してみましょう。 Are you ready, Percy? Let's go!
Yes, I am ready. Thank you, Hikari. I am ready, willing, and able. 皆さん、konnichiwa. This is Percy. And I want to welcome you to the Social English Podcast. Today, let's talk about two important words: require and need. These are two words that many English learners have trouble learning. Require is a formal word that means you must have something. Need is a simpler word that also means you must have something, but it's more casual. I will teach you those in a moment. Remember, if you are new, this is the Social English Podcast. We help you learn how to speak a kaiwa, conversational English for social situations.
英語を学び始めたばかりのリスナーの皆さん、こんにちは。ソーシャルイングリッシュポッドキャストの今日のエピソードはあなたのためです。それでも問題が解決せず、このエピソードの英語が理解できない場合は、ゆっくりとエピソードを聞いてください。頑張れ。
Formal English confuses English learners. Formal English, written or informal situations, is different from social English and normal, everyday native English. Today, we are looking at two words: require and need. Let's use these two words in sentences. 例えば、The job requires a degree in engineering. I need a cup of coffee. Requires is formal English, and need is social English. The word require comes from a word in Latin that means to ask for something. Need comes from an old word in English that means something is necessary. Now, please listen to some conversations using these words. 聞いてください. Does this job require a lot of experience? Yes, it requires at least 5 years of experience. Do you need help with your homework? Yes, I need some help with math. Those were the formal example and the casual social English example. Now I'll play some audio clips for more examples of require and need. You can find these clips in the episode notes. Okay, please listen. 聞いてください. Okay, now that we have jumped right back into the computer here in the internet world, we are going to look at examples of require versus need in formal and social English. First, we will start with the formal example of require. 聞いてください.
Journaling on it a little bit here and a little bit there and reflecting on it and answering the questions and going back and re-looking at the values. So like everything else in life that's worthwhile, it's going to require some time and some work on your part. So, if you're in a weird state right now, if you're dealing with a tragedy or something that was really bad for you, post-traumatic stress disorder, anything, a divorce, an end, something that really rocked.
And I want us to build on the Affordable Care Act. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to have to be clear about the competition that is needed to keep costs more reasonable. It is going to require us to take a hard look at premiums, copays, deductibles, and see what we can do to limit the kind of additional costs, particularly for prescription drugs, that
we've got to better reckon with the ways in which disadvantages accumulate, and with the fact that our unique historical legacies may well mean that poverty for different groups has different roots and may therefore require different remedies. I've noted the continued importance of paying attention to children in poverty. But children can also exacerbate the poverty of adults, given that they are inevitably dependent and they're
rather than being concentrated in rich countries alone, it could save 1.5 times more lives. But doing this will require levels of global cooperation that have been lacking in recent years. If the world gets it right, it could pave the way for greater collaboration on issues like climate change. Get it wrong, and it could deepen the cracks in an already fragmented global system.
Now for the center. There's no way to connect the Trojan arms without swapping a Trojan in. But continuing to shift that arm of Trojans inward would require moving the same Greek camp multiple times. However, you could shift the whole Trojan arm up and to the right.
Okay, so first up was require, and those were some examples. The conversation and the English used is very formal, not everyday English, you can hear this English on YouTube and in stories and news, but in conversations, in real dialogue, we don't talk like this. So let's use need. Okay, so let's listen to how we native English really speak and listen to need. Let's see how need is used by other people. Now remember, this is native speed English. It will be fast. Please listen carefully. Kite kudasai. Hajimemashou.
You know, in the 18th century in the UK, the greatest religious preacher was a man called John Wesley, who went up and down this country delivering sermons, advising people how they could live. He delivered sermons on the duties of parents to their children and children to their parents, the duties of the rich to the poor and the poor to the rich. He was trying to tell people how they should live through the medium of sermons, the classic medium of delivery of religions. Now, we've given up with the idea of sermons. If you said to a modern liberal individualist, hey, how about a sermon? They'd go, no, I don't need one of those. I'm an independent individual person.
And in the business sector and in the public sector, what we really need is leadership. And we need leaders, in fact, who can put together a galvanizing vision. I would say that's what we're missing. We need leaders who really desire to be creative change agents.
To that, with cancer, turn it into a chronic disease that we could control with therapies, we would have come a very, very long way. So when Vice President Biden talks about a moonshot, yes, we need to devote and dedicate more resources to cancer, but I think we need to do it like we did it for HIV/AIDS, which is to work from the bottom up. Start with fundamental research, then translate that research into new therapeutics for our patients.
The philosopher Tolstoy wrote about how in order to live, man must find a way to connect the finite to the infinite. We need to form some kind of kinship between ourselves and the unfathomable vastness of the cosmos. We are star stuff, said Carl Sagan. We are made of atoms, literally cooked in the furnaces.
And the threat in the UK remains severe. So as we drive Daesh out of one area, we must be alert to the risk that they will seek a safe haven elsewhere. And we must work internationally to defeat their ideology of hatred and murder. And we need to support other countries in the region, helping to protect them from the threat of Daesh, and thereby protecting people home in Britain too. We must also continue to strive.
The free enterprise system spreading around the world after 1970 that did that. Now, I'm not naive. I know that free enterprise isn't perfect, and I know that free enterprise isn't everything we need to build a better world, but that is great, and that's beyond politics. Here's what I learned. This is the epiphany. Capitalism is not just about accumulation. At its best, it's about aspiration, which is what so many people on this stage talk about, is the aspiration that comes from dream.
Okay, so those were some very good examples of require. Formal English we don't really use. And need. Trust me, you see, or you saw, you heard require used by news people, politicians, in formal interviews or formal speeches. But native English in regular conversation or daily, we don't use require, we use need. Okay, so think about that, need, and use that knowledge to help you get better at English. Now, let's do a quiz. Let's have some fun. I'll give you 8 sentences, and you tell me if the right word is formal, require, or social, conversational, Kaiwa English, need. So remember, when I say blank in the quiz, you think. Guess, is it require or need? Okay, so fill in the blank. Number 1, this recipe blank 3 eggs. Number 2, you blank to finish your project by Friday. 3, the job blank a background check. 4, do you blank any help? 5, the rule blank that you wear a seat belt. 6, I blank some rest after school. 7, does this game blank special skills? 8, we blank to talk about the party.
このショーを気に入っていただけたら5つ星のレビューをぜひお願いします。
And now it is time for your action item. For practice, use require and need in sentences with a friend. For example, do you require any help with your homework? Or I need to take a break. Now, remember, most of the time, need can be used instead of require. Okay, so that's going to be it for the Social English Podcast. If you like today's episode, please write a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you follow us. Please follow the podcast, and if you have any questions about today's episode, you can ask me on Instagram at Social English for Japanese. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode. Peace and love.
今日は楽しい時間をありがとうございました。ぜひ私たちのウェブサイト realsocialenglish.com を訪問して日本語訳と役立つ情報を手に入れてください。また次回お会いしましょう。バイバイ。See you next time. バイバイ。